Watali presents Strong Women, Strong Men series. Today's topic, the Myth of the Superwoman. Speakers Dr. Glenda Sims, Gender and Equity Specialist, and Debra Wright, author and Forgiveness Life Coach. Moderator, Patricia Mawa, Executive Vice President, Media and Afroglobal Television. The panel will examine the concept of don't wash your dirty laundry in public, the relationships between black men and women, and the impact of slavery on the lives of black women. Maama Watali is an Ottawa-based non-profit organization with an international reach.
Maama Watali means in the absence of a mother, and it comes from the Bantu language of Luganda, and it was born after my mom passed away. Now, the organization is really at the core to serve black women that have suffered personal loss, whether it is through loss of a loved one, but most especially because of domestic or what is sometimes referred to as intimate partner violence. When women go through violence of any kind, women just need somewhere to turn and talk to somebody, either in search of resources or just somebody to listen and validate what they're going through as they try to recover and rebuild their lives.
Maama Watali was founded to support survivors of gender-based violence and to create awareness of the challenges women continue to face.
We are doing advocacy work at all levels of government, from municipal, provincial, to national level, because women's rights essentially are human rights. And at the core of the human rights is the equality of both men and women.
Founded by Susan Namulindwa, Maama Watali has successfully undertaken several projects nationally and internationally, including the creation of a library in Uganda.
When I was a little girl, I loved to read. I remember being in a boarding school and splitting novels with my friends so that we could read. So I used this opportunity of being in Ottawa to collect books from my children's school boards, and with the help of lottery and volunteers, we transported those books to Luero and set up a community library. We were able to distribute books to neighboring schools so that they could use them to elevate the education in the area. We have also done community microcredits for women in Luero still and in Uganda in general. And we also were able to get school fees for girls. These are girls that will be high achievers for secondary school who would not have gone to school otherwise. So those are some of the things we have done in the past. Right now, our target market is right here in Canada mostly. Black women, new immigrant women that have been affected by domestic violence, intimate partner violence, or any kind of loss. So we are setting up community support circles. So we are encouraging women to get in touch and find just some either professional help or women that have also gone through what you're going through to support you. Sometimes it's just a shoulder to lean on, or somebody to say, you know what, I've made it. If I made it, you can make it. So we are really trying not to talk about being victims. We are talking about overcoming.
The vision of Maama Watali is to give voice to the lives of black women in all its dimensions.
Well, most of us have seen or witnessed a situation that we know is wrong. We know somebody who is going through some kind of abuse, some woman who needs intervention, but sometimes we don't know how to do it. So we want to put volunteer resources together so that people know how they can help in a way that is helpful for the family and helpful for the woman or the women that are going through it, so they can move forward with their children. We are putting together resources for parenting. How do you parent? How do we parent boys and girls to make sure that the boys know that they don't have to be abusive? This is not a power struggle, that they can have healthy relationships. We need to emphasize the fact that when a girl or a woman says no, that no means no. And there is no reason why, as a society or as a community, we should turn around and blame the victims after they have been abused. So currently we are holding a series of conversations. So these are weekly conversations around issues that affect women. I want to call strong men out there, strong women out there, but especially strong men. This work is not about women versus men. We need to hear the male voices. There is a lot of good, strong men out there that fight day and night for their families, that go out every day to protect their families. We need to hear your voices. We need to hear you add your voices to this work, because, the family is the core foundation of our community. So if we have broken families, we are going to have a broken community. So a family is the nucleus of the community. So if we build strong families, we will build a strong community. Jump in and let us do this work together.
Patricia Bebia Mawa has served as president of Planet Africa Group, the executive vice president of Afroglobal Television and Silvertrust Media, the largest Black-owned media organization in Canada. She is also the host of the Planet Africa show on Omni TV. She has directed and produced over 15 television programs, including the Oma Bella drama series and Standing Ovation. Patricia is the associate publisher of Excellence, Envision, and Destiny magazines. In 2008, Silvertrust Media introduced the Discover magazine series, which has since released over 20 titles and editions in various countries. Listed in the Who's Who in Black Canada, she is a recipient of the York Regional Police Civic Leadership Award, the Martin Luther King Dreamkeeper Award, and a Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal. The mother of four is the co-founder of the Crossover Mentorship Program, a youth empowerment initiative. Patricia was spotlighted as Woman of the Week in Women's Post and also featured on CNN International in a half-hour special with her husband Moses. In March 2016, the duo launched Afroglobal Television, a 24-hour television channel that is on Rogers Cable, Bell 5, Eastlink, and TELUS across Canada. In 2018, Patricia and Moses co-authored the 150 Extraordinary Canadians Legacy book with a foreword by the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau.
Welcome everyone to this webinar organized by Maama Watali. My name is Patricia Bebia Mawa, and I'm excited to be here today to be your moderator. I'm being joined by two amazing women, and we're going to be discussing the myth of the superwoman. But before we get started, a few housekeeping rules. Now, today, during the course of the event, you'll only be able to see and hear the speakers. Participants' cameras and mics are going to be disabled, and you do have the chat box to, chat with everyone and interact. And please make sure you do that. We also have the Q&A box where you can send your questions. At the end of our discussion, we're going to be taking questions from, members of the audience. So feel free to, send in your questions. Now, today we're going to be discussing the myth of the superwoman. I really do love this topic. And we're going to examine the concept of don't wash your dirty laundry in public, the impact of slavery on the lives of Black women. We'll also explore the relationships between Black men and Black women. And we'll also be delving into the historical principle that if a woman is not abused by her husband, he doesn't love her, based on what a lot of women saw their parents actually, go through. Now, the outcome of today's webinar is to build confidence that women, men, children, youth And young adults can become strong women and men and deal with conflict without resorting to abuse of any kind. And that there is no shame in airing your dirty linen in public, especially if you have been abused. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers at this moment. The first person I will be introducing is a legend. I feel so privileged to be in the same forum with her. Um, by the time I read her bio, you understand. Now, Dr. Glenda Sims is one of Jamaica's leading feminists, human rights advocates, and gender specialists. She advocates for gender and racial equality as a distinguished educator and cross-cultural psychologist. She currently works as the executive director of her own company, which is called Sims Consulting, an internationally renowned firm. Now, Dr. Sims has lived and worked in several indigenous communities across the country. She completed a master's degree and doctorate in educational psychology from the University of Alberta in 1976 and 1985. Now, following the completion of her doctorate, Dr. Sims became a professor at universities in Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Ontario. Now, she was the first and maybe the only Black woman to be appointed in 1990 as president and chief of the Canadian Advisory Council on the Status of Women, where she remained until 1995. Now, Dr. Sims was a founding member of the Congress of Black Women and an expert member of the United Nations Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Dr. Sims focused on the strategies to raise the self-esteem of young Jamaican girls and women. Now, our second panelist and speaker is Debra Wright. Debra M. Wright is a three-time published author. Her memoir, Becoming Debra Wright, The Forgiveness Journal, and a best-selling author of the anthology Broken Trust. Now, Debra is an entrepreneur and has successfully crafted her forgiveness life coaching business as an affiliate of Dr. Kate Johnson 83K Academy. Her passion is to help women that have gone through broken relationships, either through separation or divorce, in order to get them to a place of freedom where they can forgive and handle their anger and bitterness in a more freeing way. Now, she's worked in the event industry for many years and has been known to mentor people along the way. As a mentor with Emerge Inc., she helps to give her mentees strategies and goals in setting and executing goals. She's an award-winning leadership coach with Christopher Leadership Lumen Association. Welcome to you both. We're just going to go straight into our discussion for today. And Dr. Glenda Sims, I would like to ask you the first question. Now, as an academic, a person who is considered a legend, a trailblazer of the 20th century on women's rights and specifically the rights of Black women, you are still, and it's one of the people I would consider a superwoman in many respects, and I do admire you. I'm so proud of you. Now, you are not a myth. As an early pioneer juggling a young family, studying and being very active in the community as a community organizer. When we talk about don't wash your dirty laundry in public, what did it mean to you as a young girl growing up in Jamaica? And what were some of the challenges that you had to deal with?
I had to deal with family issues. I had to deal with the fact that women were expecting to do all the housework, do the cleaning and the washing, and the young men and the young boys could go out and play with birds and roll balls along the roadside and enjoy nature. We had to deal with that. And I decided that I'm not going to be the woman to clean and wash and pick up after anybody. If boys have the right to enjoy nature, women have the right to enjoy nature and to make sure they know who they are. Therefore, I realized that boys were raised differently and girls were raised to stay in house and become slaves to everybody, including parents, husbands, boyfriends, whoever. And when you go to school, you are still enslaved to the school system. In my community, the schools was established by the Anglican Church. In other words, the church was there with slavery, as you know, and therefore they established schools for the enslaved children and poor people's children. Well, I learned to overcome that and make sure that I wouldn't listen to them very much, but I just learned to read and write very early and make sure that you can prepare issues and discuss issues at a very early age. And I'm glad I was raised by my great grandmother, who told me that I had the right to be anybody I want to be. And so I made that choice.
Okay. Well, that's great. Now, Debra, I would like to hear from you because we believe, a lot of people believe that, holding onto certain information and not sharing certain aspects of your life is actually a way for you to remain strong, courageous. But you wrote a memoir, and in your memoir, you actually did not hide anything at all. You actually put it all out there. You spoke about your divorce. You spoke about, the pregnancies that you lost and everything. You actually just laid it out there. So let's talk about this for a moment. The fact that, airing your dirty laundry in public is a sign of weakness. Well, what have you to say about this in relation to the myth of the superwoman?
I would say to that, as a person having put my story out there, that it's okay to share your life. It's okay to, you have to be willing and able to actually put yourself out there and not be ashamed of your story. Because the truth of the matter is your story is there to help others. A lot of times, growing up, we would hear, oh, you can't tell anybody, this and that and the other. But I decided that I would break that norm. I was not ashamed of who I was, of what happened in my life. I'm not ashamed of that. It is actually something that now I'm able to use my experience and my past to help other people that may have been going through some of the similar things that I have. So as the superwoman, I see it as something that we need to do, because a lot of us, we have daughters, we have granddaughters, we have nieces and nephews, nieces. And why are you hiding stuff? A lot of time, the things that get hidden are the things that causes us the most pain. And, and then we hold on to these things, and it keeps us back from actually living our lives. So I would say you put it out with reason, within reason. You're not crass about it, but you're able to share your experience with others.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Now, I know that some people associate, keeping all your stuff in with strength. Now, Dr. Sims, who is a superhuman woman to you, and do you consider that a myth? Like, what are the qualities of a superwoman in your opinion?
Well, I think that women have the ability to be supreme and to do what they were intended to do, to be strong human beings. I mean, I am a senior citizen, and I play many roles. I'm a mother, and I was a daughter until recently, when my mother lived to be over 100 years old. I have grandchildren, so I'm a grandmother. I'm a mother of, boys as well as girls. I'm a sister. I play the role of sister, grandmother, great-grandmother, auntie, grandaunt. All those roles in one women have learned to play those roles. We have no choice but to. Once we start having children and being in families, you have different roles, and we have to understand the meaning of those roles. Now, I decided that from very early, those were the roles I prefer. I wasn't going to be any mop for any man, because you're married to them or whatever. So I believe that a woman can be who she wants to be, whether she's married or not married. And therefore, I'm saying women must fight to do the best they can, because they have the abilities. And those of us who came out of slavery should understand that slavery ensured that we can overcome. I was raised on a slave plantation in Jamaica. Many other black women, they came out of slavery. Some of them don't even know their slave roots. I know my slave roots. I saw what it did to us. And I'm determined that I will never, ever allow my children to be enslaved, nor other young women. And that's whatever work I do is to ensure that black women do not to have to be enslaved. They can be who they want to be and work hard to achieve. And therefore, academically, when I went to school and university, I decided I would find my place there. I have to get the best mark, whatever. And therefore, I think I want to share with young black women the fact that they have the right. And those of us, we are all of African ancestry if we are black people. Many of us don't know that because, of course, we were landed on the slave ship all over the world. You know, my ancestors were landed in Jamaica. I don't know where yours was landed. Oh, yeah, you're of African origin, right?
Yeah, I'm from Nigeria, actually, yes.
You're from Nigeria, right? So they drag you here in some kind of ship or something, right? And they dragged my ancestors in some ship and hooked us up on the island of Jamaica, up in the mountains. It was a beautiful mountain, but I learned to overcome slavery.
Wow. So I'd like us to delve into, how slavery affects Black women a little bit later on. I want us to kind of, discuss it a bit further later. But Debra, I'd like you to share what, in your opinion, are the qualities of a superwoman.
What I would say as for a superwoman would be that woman that she knows how to handle her family, she knows how to handle her job, she knows how to handle whatever comes in her way. I see that woman as somebody that is really strong, not being afraid to cry if you have to, but being able to juggle all the different tasks that are thrown at us. Because as women, as the Dr. Sims has said before, we cook, we clean, we do all these things, but you're able to be strong and you can still stand as a woman, still stand as a whole person. You're strong, you're super, but sometimes we have to be able to step back and say, I need help as well. We don't have to always be that superwoman. I think sometimes it becomes a myth, that we have to do everything. We don't have to do everything. We do. And as Black women, we also sometimes take over the children. We take over the rearing of the kids. We take over, every single aspect of our family, and I think sometimes we endanger ourselves, our well-being, because as a superwoman, you still need to take self-care for yourself and be able to, to rejuvenate, so we don't always have to be that superwoman. That's my opinion on that, actually.
Okay, well, great. Now, I do know that as women, as Dr. Sim said earlier, society has created certain norms that they expect of us. And a friend of mine said that, we've been drinking the Kool-Aid of patriarchy for a long time. And that sometimes affects women and our level of our achievement, because society puts a little cap, ceiling on us. I'm glad that things have changed quite a bit, but I'd like us to talk a little bit about how patriarchy, the system, societal sort of norms have kind of affected us as women, whereby we kind of naturally take a subservient role, not just in the family but even at work and other places. So let's talk about the relationship here between men and women. I saw the one of the themes of the topic there that said, if a woman is not abused, she's not loved by her husband, based on how things were in the past. So let's talk about that, Dr. Sims. How does this concept of patriarchy affect our role as women, not just in the family, but in society, at work, and everywhere?
Yeah, because we have been socialized to think that men are responsible for us. And as many people do not see it as an equal relationship, they think the man must be in charge of everything. He has a right to run countries. He is the one that we saw in our countries being the leaders, the prime ministers, and whatever. We go to the church, he's in the pulpit. So there comes a time when we think that his role to lead our lives. And women have to understand that that's not true. It's a myth. Women, we have the strength to do what we need to do. We can do whatever they do. We can run churches, run universities. We can do whatever we want to do. It's just that we must know that women have the right to find their rightful place in life and not to depend on everybody. Just Black women in particular, if they don't know that, then they start depending on white women. They depend on the people who run the plantations, the owners of plantations, and they have to go in and do the cleaning. I mean, we know that they have to go and do the cleaning. They have to go and clean the churches, whatever. And they had to decide that they had to listen to other people. We don't have to listen to anybody. Listen to yourself. Work hard. We have the brain to take us wherever we want to do. We have the ability to work for other women and to work for and to show young Black women the fact that they have a right to be who they want to be. They do not have to depend on anybody, and they don't have to prove that anybody is superior to them. They are not. Who made them superior? Who created us and made us superior? Ask ourselves that question, and let me tell you, you will get the answer. You were not created to be unsuperior or to be less than. You were created to be strong, equal, and to achieve what you want to achieve as Black women. And you as young Black women today must realize that you are capable, and your daughters are capable, your sisters, whoever you are, whatever you do, do the best and become the best of what you can be.
I like that. I like that, Dr. Sims. Now, as Black women, I say that it's almost like a double jeopardy, because women already have, a lot of biases that they have to deal with, and barriers. But then, to be a woman and to be Black, there's sort of like intersectionality that causes a little bit of a challenge to navigate certain quarters. Now, let's discuss the specific relationship between Black men and Black women. Debra, I'd like you to delve into this because statistics show that there's more abuse in our community, especially when it comes to, sort of intimate relationships. Why do you think that is the norm? And what can be done to sort of help the relationship between Black men and Black women to be devoid of domestic abuse?
I think that, Patricia, that there is a lack of respect, mutual respect between the Black woman, the Black man. A lot of times, I find that if we look back at slavery and how the Black man was treated, they were really shown to be less than the women, even though the women were the ones that the slave owners would come after, right? They would take them and they would use them as their bed partners, more or less. And the Black man, he stood there and he was demoralized watching his woman or his wife or whatever be abused. So I find that sometimes now the Black man feel as though he's fighting to be on top. He's fighting to be the head of this relationship. But in so doing, he's not seeing his partner as an equal partner. She's something that I need to subdue. And that, she can't have her own ideas or her own thoughts and do what she wants. You have to do what I tell you to do. And that ends up causing a lot of issues in relationships, and then with the thought that we were talking about, not airing your linen in public, your dirty linen in public. Now that woman is now silenced and doesn't think that she can go to anybody to let them know what is going on in her home or in their relationship. So it puts pressure on the woman, and it put pressure on the man. So they're trying to come to an understanding of who they are and where they are, and somehow not being able to understand and meet in the middle, so that they can have a harmonious relationship. I've seen a lot of abuse in our community, and it pains my heart, because it's like, why? You look at this beautiful queen, you chose her to be your partner, and then when you get into your home, you can't get along, or you think that you've got to dominate this woman. It's not a good thing. It's a terrible thing, actually, that's happening in our society. But I honestly believe, Patricia, that it goes back to slavery, and there are things that's in our DNA that I believe that we haven't been able to let go of. And so, it continues, but we really need to work on letting each other know who we are and what we're going to accept from each other. It comes to communication.
Okay. Yeah, great. I agree with you 100%. I think that a lot has to do with slavery. A lot has to do with healing. A lot has to do with loving ourselves and forgiving ourselves. Because somebody once said that the way you treat a version of you is a reflection of how you see yourself. So if you're, abusing your fellow Black woman, it's just a reflection of you as a person. So let's go right into the slavery discussion right now. Now, as a former academic and psychologist, Dr. Sims, you've written widely on women and slavery. Could you describe some of the realities of Black women and girls who were kidnapped from their villages in Ghana, Nigeria, or some West African country, and taken in chains and brought to a new world where they were subjected to all kinds of inhuman treatment? Wow. Now, tell us a little bit about how being treated as a property and all the indignities that Black women had to go through has led to a generational kind of trauma that we may still, be reaping the negative benefits from.
Yes, and we have to, many of us have, and many people have gone to Ghana and gone to see where they entered the door of no return. But many of us people did not necessarily come from Ghana. We came through the door, but we came from other societies, other countries, and from other tribes. And therefore, we were taken, handcuffed, pulled down, raped, run until we get down to where they're going to sending us off. And personally, I believe that we need to have the opportunity to go to Africa to understand the history of Africa and understand our own history. We need to be proud to be of African origin. Many Caribbean people, for instance, I'm Jamaican, they don't think about them being African, or they don't want to be proud of being an African person. Well, I'm proud to be a descendant of African people. And I am sure that my people did not come from Ghana. I think I came from somewhere up there. Once I went to 1985, I went to Kenya. And I was quite sure that I might have come from Kenya. So I came home and shaved my head. I'm a Maasai. So, because you saw somebody who could relate to you and so on. And it was very interesting because I went with the Canadian delegation to Kenya. And I went because I insisted that Canada could not send an all-white delegation to the International Women's Conference in 1985. And because Canada has all kinds of women, all kinds of races and so on. And therefore, why would they send all white women to represent Canada? So we have to fight against what goes on in this society also. Take a strong stance. know what is happening and make sure you're well represented. If you know nothing about the country in which you live and you do not understand the politics of the country, then you're not going to make any difference. So therefore, I was happy that I was able to get to Ottawa and went and stepped into their meeting and told them that I'm against the fact that they're sending an all-white delegation to Kenya. And they said, well, if you want, you can go with us. I said, I didn't come for myself. They are Baha'i women. They are Aboriginal women. They are women from all kinds of races and groups and religion. Put them together. Make sure Canada is reflecting the population. We are not a white society for many years now. There are many, many different groups here. And so they allowed me to go. I think they thought they were doing me a little favor, let her go along. So anyhow, I went on that plane with the Canadian delegation. And of course, most people in Africa think Canada is a white society. If you think about them, they think it's a white society. They don't know about the history of it. So therefore, when I got off that plane in Nairobi, and when I looked down, I saw people walking with animals, and the soil was red, just like the Jamaican soil I came from. Bauxite, red soil, people walking with their animals. And so I went off, and then I went to the immigration man, and all my other members of the Canadian Society, they of course took out their passport, and they're were mostly white women. They put down the passport, the immigration man stamped it, handed it to them. Stamped, handed. When I put down my passport, and he said, this plump black woman with shaved hair, because I'd shaved my hair when I work amongst Aboriginal people, because the children were playing in my hair. And he saw that. He looked up at me and he said, welcome home, my sister, welcome home. Yes, I was welcomed home to Kenya. So I think I decided I was from Kenya. I don't know if I was, but at least I was welcomed home.
You're probably from Nigeria. We claim you.
And I've been to South Africa. I was not from South Africa. I can tell you that.
At this point, I would like us to discuss a bit more about slavery as it connects to Canada. Now, until recently, very little has been, talked about or known about, the history of slavery in Canada. We know that the people like, Dr. Afua Cooper, who's written about this history. Now, Dr. Sims, could you tell us about those that you may know, a little bit also about the history and maybe the story of Marie Joseph Angelique, the young woman born in Madeira, Portugal in 1705, who was brought to Canada as a slave?
Canada, they had to say they had no children. So they deny having children. It was only when the Filipinos and those kids started coming over and they took a stance against that rule in Canada that it was changed. And so when they said they had no children, they left their children behind, and those children were violated. Many of them were raped and raped and raped because the parents left them there. But I want to talk about the Aboriginal woman you spoke to. When I came to Canada in 1966, I went to northern Alberta and worked amongst the Aboriginal people. And it was the best experience that I've ever had. They were great people. The women treated me so well. They shared things with me. They showed me how to cook, the fish and so on, because I didn't know how to cook in a new country. They showed me how to dress for the winter time. They showed me how to wear, what shoes to wear. They were just the best people to me when I went to Fort Chipewyan amongst the Métis and then the Aboriginal, the ones on the reserve were close by. So I've seen the two sets of religious and operational and the educational operation. And I understood the pain of suffering when you were treated like nobody. And therefore, I am so pleased that the Aboriginal people helped me to associate with Canada in a better way. and also guided me and guided my development. And so that was why I was able to make sure that I will never back down, because the First Nation women that I interacted with gave me the strength.
For many Canadians witnessing the events on Capitol Hill in Washington recently, and there was a symbol of the news. Now, what is the message in this? And it was not so subtle because it was being sent to Black people in the US. And I would say that all Black people everywhere in the world saying that it affected us. Now, considering we're in the 21st century, in your opinion, Debra, do you foresee these kinds of symbols reappearing in Canada? And when we talk about us as Black women, how do this degradation of our culture and our people and disrespect for history that should not be represented in that way, how does that affect us?
It puts us back, Patricia, in the frame of mind of back then. I mean, many of us have read books and seen films on slavery and people hanging from the trees and hanging in different places. And what it does, it gives you a sense of sadness for one thing, because we're thinking that in today's society, why are we still seeing these representations of back in yesteryear? It is something that is, it makes us as human beings, Black men and women, it makes us feel that we're still not worth it, even though we know that we are. It puts us back into that frame of mind. I was very distraught when I've seen, news appearing in different places. I mean, we've had some here in Canada as well. And it has been like, really, are we in the 21st century or are we back during the time of slavery? I think it's time that all these things go away, because we are supposed to be more civilized now. We have arrived at a different point. We have gotten to places in society where these things are not necessary, because we are all part of the family of God. Whatever you want to think, we're all a part of the human family, whether we're white, Black, brown, yellow, whatever color we are all human. And I think that it's time that we really let go of some of the prejudices that are out there, and the symbolisms of slavery and all this humility that that people are causing to one another. I think it's time that we get away from that. But is this going to stop? I don't think it is. Not right now anyways, because there are still mindsets that needs to be changed. And it's very heartbreaking, actually, because you think about your young boys and even your young girls. It's not a matter of boy or girl anymore. You think about your men, when our men go out there and they're outside, the things that happen to them, the way that we're treated. It still breaks your heart to see what's happening in today's society. So that symbolism was very, very jarring, but we know that it's still there. So we really need to work on it.
I agree. I mean, I was angry. I'm angry every time I see something like that. Now, there's so many reasons for Black women to be angry, actually, but let's talk about the whole angry Black woman phenomena that has been perpetuated. I know that as Black women, unfortunately, the wrong of justice is, descends on us more harshly, because I know the people who, when they lose their cool, that they can say they're having a bad day, but if it's a Black woman, it's an angry Black woman. Dr. Stevens, what have you to say about the whole phenomenon about the angry Black woman? Why do you think that we're perceived in such a way? Are we really angry? Do we come across as angry? Is there a reason to be angry? And why do we appear angry?
Well, there are reasons why we might have to be angry, but we must understand what we're dealing with. I mean, when I did psychology and went out to test children to see those who were intelligent and those who were not. And I went out into the Aboriginal communities. And of course, when we asked the questions, the answers that they gave was against the answer that the test expected. But I realized that the test was designed to show that white people are intelligent and we are not intelligent. That's what the test was designed for. And therefore, I decided that I'm going to make sure that I do a critique of the test. I did my PhD to deal with the testing that goes out to test these children, and realize that the children are more highly intelligent than many other children. They came from other groups, Aboriginal groups, poor people's children. Use the opportunity. We need to understand and critique what is happening and ask ourselves, are we going to tell the truth, or are we going to go along with the story? It sounds like a good story. Well, it's not a good story. We were highly intelligent people. The kids were giving the right answers. It's just that the test was not designed to show that Aboriginal kids and poor white kids and poor black kids were intelligent. It was designed to show that unintelligent white people were intelligent.
Okay, yeah, great. Now, Debra, can you delve into that, the concept of the angry black woman? What is your opinion? What's your take on this?
I think it's a stigma that they try to put on us whenever we decide that we're going to speak up. So, we should not speak up. We should just be silent. And if you come off as having a little bit of attitude, you're angry. You cannot say that, you've done me something and I cannot respond to you in the way, that anybody else will come across. But if I come across that I'm so strong and, I'm angry, it's not fair. It's not a fair description, because anybody else could say this exact same thing that we say, but then we're angry. No, yes, I might be angry, but it's not necessarily angry in the sense that I can't control my temper or whatever. I need to speak up. We need to speak up. So don't tell me I'm angry because I am telling you that I do not agree with what you're saying or you're doing to us. I'm not angry because I'm not coming across angry, but every time they want to shut you up, they say that you're an angry black woman. The black woman has been through so much in life. First to begin, we can sometimes not even be able to get to the top of where we need to be because, we're labeled. Oh, I can't say anything. I'm angry. No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm angry. Yes. But no, I'm not angry in the way that you're talking about. I want to get my point across. I want to be heard. This is what I need. I need to be heard. So can you please not call me angry? Everybody else can say the same thing and not be labeled as angry. It needs to stop, Patricia. It really does.
I agree with you because that kind of stifles us, and sometimes you find yourself in a situation where somebody's just being nasty to you. You want to speak up, and then you remember, oh my God, if I do, they're going to say I'm an angry black woman. And I think that as black women, we should not let that deter us from speaking our truth. It should not, stop us from, being ourselves and calling out, wrong when we see it. Now, I want to talk about data, Dr. Sims. There's very little race-based data that has been collected when it has to do with violence against, Black women. What have you to say about this, and what do you think needs to be done about that?
Well, from at a very early stage, many Black women realize that this is an issue. And so there was a time, and if you go back in the history, where the government wanted to use the term visible minority for Black women. And then there are some of us who said, we are not visible minority, we are Black. And so we started the organization, the Congress of Black Women of Canada, refused to be called visible minority because we are saying we are Black women. We will define ourselves. And that organization has done very well. Many people have, done very well in that organization, and it was a strong organization, and so we have contributed to the development in the country. So when they say Canada is a racist society, there are all kind of things that we need to research and look at and say what was happening. We are not visible minority. we are Black women. But some people would prefer to be called the visible minority or some other label or whatever. They don't want to be called Black. I mean, so those are issues that we have to talk about psychologically. What is it? Who are we? When they took us across the to the slave plantations. I came from a slave plantation in St. Elizabeth in Jamaica. My people were part of that slave plantation. And the church was very involved. The Anglican church was very involved in enslaving us in church, school, and cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
Wow.
it's
Wow.
but maybe they don't anymore.
That's a conversation for another day. I know next week they'll be discussing.
Well, my mother lived to be 100, and she was buried in this cemetery, but we had to pay a lot of money for that little spot, you know.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So, you know, I see what you're saying, Dr. Sims. The fact that whenever, as Black people, we are put in a label, we're forgotten. So if you say visible minorities, we're cut off. So I see what you're saying there. Now, Debra, let's talk about what we're going through right now, COVID-19, and the fact that Black families living in Ottawa and other places during this lockdown, there've been more calls to the police and shelters to do with abuse. Now, you're a forgiveness coach. What do you think that, you know, women need to do? What levels of forgiveness is meant to happen at this point? And how can we navigate situations where we find ourselves in, you know, this kind of relationships where we're abused by the people that are supposed to protect us? And some people are dealing with all kinds of issues at the same time. And then we have the lockdown going on as well.
Thanks, Patricia. It's a very delicate balance right now, because with the lockdown, there's a lot of abuse that is taking place in the homes. And sometimes we're not able to let people know what's going on just because of what's happening right now with COVID. But as long as you can acknowledge what's going on in your home and try to find some way of letting someone know what you're going through. I'm going to share my screen just for a little bit, and we're going. You ask about levels of forgiveness. I'm just going to go through really quickly on a screen. And just share a little bit about the forgiveness part of this. We're talking about forgiveness right now, and I want to tell you what it means first, and then I'll continue the conversation. What does forgiveness mean? According to the psychologist, generally it defines forgiveness as a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance towards a person or a group who has harmed you, regardless of whether they deserve your forgiveness. Forgiveness does not mean that you're condoning, you're forgetting, or you're excusing the offense that happened. So in the families right now that may not be able to get out and to say what's going on, just acknowledge that there's something wrong and share it with someone. Never decide to just sit in silence of what is happening in your home. You need to let somebody know, because what happens is that you sit there and you can get sick. You can be really, really devastated by everything that's happening. So some of the levels of forgiveness that we can talk about is, first, you uncover your anger, because when you didn't forgive somebody, whether they're molesting you, or they're beating you, you're in a relationship that's very, it's hard, like it's toxic, especially being in lockdown. You need to uncover that anger, right? You're angry. Why am I angry? I'm angry because I'm being molested. I'm angry because my husband or my spouse is beating on me, and I have nowhere to go right now because I'm in a house and I can't get out. So you need to figure out where your anger is coming from and let go. The next thing you have to do is to decide if you're going to forgive that person. Deciding to forgive that person does not mean that you are condoning what they're doing to you. You are deciding that you don't want to be feeling the way that you're feeling. You've talked about it, you get it out of your system. You know that you're angry, you're holding resentment, you're hurt. Then you decide, am I going to forgive? Holding on to that anger is not good for you. So it's always good to forgive the person that has hurt you. Forgiving that person doesn't mean that you have to be close to that person anymore. It doesn't mean that at all. It means that you are learning to forgive, not for them, but you're doing it to free yourself. You are the one that's hurting. And if you hold on to all of that emotional baggage and the pain, they are still keeping the power over you. So you decide to forgive and you let it go. Then the other thing is you work on forgiveness. Forgiveness is not a one-day journey. Forgiveness is a journey that could take you sometimes days, months, years to get over the pain that you have been, the pain that has been inflicted upon you by other people. It's a journey. So you uncover where the anger is. You decide that you're going to forgive. And sometimes, my friend, you have to be able to write. One of the things I could say that even if you're in a home and that you can't tell someone at the time, you can write it down, because that writing becomes cathartic. It helps you to be able to let go of what you're dealing with. It's hard. Holding on to that unforgiveness is very hard, but what you do is when you continue to work on yourself, when you continue to work on that, you begin to be released from that emotional prison. So that piece of forgiveness, you really need to be able to work on it, because it will hold you in bondage. You don't want to be locked in at the home or wherever you are right now and still not be able to be free, because you can live so emotionally, you can be so emotional and not be able to let go of it. Remember, I always say to people that forgiveness is freedom. In order to be free, you have to let go of the pain that has been inflicted to you by other people. It's not something that you can stop right away, my friends, but you can actually be free of the pain that you are experiencing. We have to be able to let go. It's not easy. It really isn't easy to let go of all the pain, but I would say talk to somebody. Get out from where you are. If you can't get out, just call somebody and get away from what you're experiencing right now. This season that we're in is very dangerous. It's very, very dangerous for mental health. A lot of people are struggling. So, just take it one step at a time, but talk to someone, find somebody that you can talk to, and journal daily. When it comes to you, just write it down, and you'll begin to get a little bit of freedom.
Thank you so much, Debra, for that. Yeah, forgiveness is very important. But, what Debra is saying is doesn't mean that if you're being molested or abused, you should not speak out. Remember what she said earlier about how liberating speaking out is. So Debra is a forgiveness coach. You can, if you need help in that area, you can always send her a message in the chat and she'll be able to continue the conversation with you and help you out. Maama Watali was created so that we can have these conversations on even on a more personal level and help each other out. Thank you so much, Debra, for going in depth into the whole forgiveness piece. Now, I would like to take some questions at this time. We do have some here in the chat. It says, in your opinion, what is the Black women's role in the feminist movement? I would like Dr. Sims to answer that. The role of the Black woman in the feminist movement.
Yeah. Well, I always considered myself a feminist. I believe that women have a right and that we must make sure that we were not discriminated against because we were born women. And so that's why I really worked on the feminist issue. And because I was doing that and working and writing about it, and then Brian Mulroney in 1990 appointed me to head up the Canadian Advisory Council on the Status of Women. And everybody was surprised. I mean, you know, a first Black woman to head up anything like that, and worked hard on the rights of women, all women, not just, you know, and every woman felt that she had a place and she can come and say what she wants to say, and she has the right to say it. And of course, the organization was disbanded when the new political party came in. They just wiped it out. You know, the Canadian Advisory Council was wiped out by the new political party that came in, because it was formed by one political party. But you know, the usual political struggle that goes on in every country. So as far as I'm concerned, that was their prerogative. I did what I had to do. I enjoyed working with women. I made sure Black women were involved. Women of every color had some place in it. Prior to going there, they didn't even hire Black people to work in that organization. And I insisted that we had to hire them. And therefore, we made place for these Black women, Aboriginal women, women of Indian origin, East Indian, whatever, Chinese women. We had to make sure that they had jobs in that organization to show that we all have a right, and that we must not keep discriminating against different groups. And it's the Black women who were mostly discriminated against. And I say I'm a feminist because I believe that women have a right, that men are not superior to us. Women have a right to plan their lives, to get the best education in the world, to do whatever they want to do. Women have a right. And whoever created us as women with the right. And so if you go into your Bible, whatever religion you're in, you'll see that women, Black women, were allowed to have the freedom to be who they are. But some people don't believe that, but I believe that. I was raised in an Anglican, and I think that God was Black from those days. So I went to school. Yeah, I went to school in the Anglican church. I went to the church with my great-grandmother, and I noticed there were shiny pews in the Anglican church. And when I sat in it, my great-grandmother said, "No, baby, you can't sit in it. This is for the white people. You can't sit in these pews." And so I went there for 2 weeks. I would never remove myself from the shiny pew. And up till this day, I believe the shiny pew is the process of going where you want to be. I must always be in the shiny pew. So we tell our children, we tell our sons, you go to school, do the best you can. Tell your girls, do the best you can. Tell your women friends, do the best you can. Sit in the shiny pew and do not move from the shiny pew. You have a right to the shiny pew.
Thank you, Dr. Sims. Now, again, put your question in the Q&A box, not in the chat. The next question is for you, Debra. And this question is a very interesting question, because sometimes as Black women, we're so used to doing things for ourselves. We're independent, and then sometimes we're so used to doing our own things, and the men in our lives kind of say, "Oh, you have to let me be a man." So this question says, do you believe abuse in our community has any relation to us being super women, strong women, and high achievers, and the men therefore feel insuperior? I don't believe there's any reason to be abusive, but Debra, what do you think about this?
I think there's some correlation to that, actually, because we are who we are, honestly, because sometimes I think of myself, of the things that I have done. I worked 2 jobs, I raised my children, I had a business on the side. Yeah, I had a husband too, but I would paint the house, I would do everything. And it does sometimes make your spouse feel inferior. And in some homes, it would cause them to want to beat up on you. It's not right, but it's something that it does happen in our community. I think it has a big correlation, because a lot of times, and then we can turn around and be pretty strong, mouthy women as well. Well, I'm not going to wait for you to do this and that and the other. And when you deal with a man like that, they don't necessarily like that. They think, oh, you're just rude, and they figure that I've got to be in control. But a man that wants to hit on you is actually a man that has low self-esteem, because you should, as a man, you should be proud to see your woman, your wife, being successful and doing the things that she's doing, and support her in that endeavor. I do believe that sometimes those are some of the reasons that they would abuse the wives.
Yes. I agree with you. There's no reason to be abusive, and there's no reason to feel, inferior, especially when the woman is, committed to you. Now, the next question is very interesting. It says, isn't the history of our enslavement a significant part of our process of healing? Is it not necessary to analyze the intergenerational residue left on the imprints of our family dynamics and seen in our systemic and institutionalized racism we were unable to function in today? What role does slavery play in our advancement and healing? Dr. Sims.
I came from a family that was enslaved in the mountains of St. Elizabeth in Jamaica. That's my family. And they were part of a plantation, the Stanmore plantation. And the land that we now own and my mother owned was part of the plantation, because they all worked in the house and they clean and they look after the horses and the animals, and they were just enslaved there. And so we were supposed to just continue in that role. And at a very early age, I realized I am not going to continue to be enslaved. And one of the reasons that I think I could learn not to be enslaved is to learn not to join too many of the churches or the schools and so on. I decided I will learn to read, and I'll read anything. And of course, the Bible was always in the house, so I read the Bible, but doesn't mean that I believe what it said. I didn't believe that there was a white God. I mean, as a child, I told myself I had to feel that whoever made me or created me as a super person, not no ordinary person. And for me to, to forgive them or to pacify whatever. I'm not pacifying anything. Why would we be created unequal to either men or other women, and also to the plantation owners? Because in St. Elizabeth, where I came from, there were two groups: the mulatto class, who came and owned the plantation, and their ancestors came from Scotland and England and so on, and they built their houses up in that area. And then our people who had to clean up the houses, look after them. And the schools that were built for us were the poorest school. We didn't learn anything. The only human being I learned about in the book was a man named Mr. Joe. No other human beings. Mr. Joe, and all he had were animals.
Wow.
So I know that. So our minds were being carved to think that Black people had to live like that. And I decided, no, Mr. Joe, I won't want to hear anything about you and your animals and what you do. I know I'm never going to be Mrs. Joe. Wouldn't marry to Mr. Joe. No.
Oh man, Dr. Sims, that's really funny. This question is so important. I'd like you to talk about this. The fact that do we have to look back to what slavery has done to us and be able to let go of that for us to be able to heal?
One of the things you do is you acknowledge the past. You acknowledge that this was done to you or to your ancestors. But that's in order to move on. But one of the analogies that I like to use is that you cannot drive a car looking always in the rearview mirror. Mm-hmm. You look back as a point of contact so that you can get perspective, but you can't live there. You have to look forward. One of the things unforgiveness is that you hold on to what's past and not being able to let it go. Slavery is a stain on the world. It's a stain on our countries and our society. And we, as descendants from the slaves, we now have to look forward to where we can go and to what glass ceilings we are going to shatter. Don't let the past hurt bring us down to the point where we can't move on. We don't have to be the people that just live and think about all the wrong that's done to us, because we will never move forward. We acknowledge our past, we acknowledge where we came from, but at the same time, move forward. Things are going to pop up in our lives that's going to remind us of these past things that were done, but we are now able to move forward. Don't worry with the things that are happening today. We deal with it as it come up, but we have to really acknowledge it and learn to let it go and keep moving forward. I know someone had asked about restorative justice earlier. It is not acknowledging that some things that were done, yes, there need to be justice for it and all of that. Forgiveness does not say that what was done to us wasn't wrong. It doesn't tell us that we have to be friends. It doesn't tell us that we have to, to be buddies with the person that hurt us. All it's saying is that you are letting go of all of this pain because you want to be free. You want to be able to live a normal life. So, we just have to really be able to let go. It doesn't mean that the past is not there. It's there.
Right.
We acknowledge it, but we
Right.
move forward.
Right. Okay, great. Now, I know that someone once said that healing begins with feeling. So we have to acknowledge it, as you said, but then don't let it hold us back. There's so many amazing questions. Our time is so short. I wish we can take all of them, but let me just, let's keep going and see how much we can take. This one is saying, it's for you, Debra. What if you are alone in a country and there's no one there for you? What will you do if you're being abused?
There's always organizations that you can call. You can call, if you live in North America, you can dial 911. Sometimes it's hard to do it, but you have to find some way to get out and get help. Call 911. There are different numbers that we can call that are for people that are experiencing abuse. There's always somebody that you can call and get away from the situation. You never have to sit alone and suffer in silence. Doesn't matter if you are alone in the country. No, try and find out who you can reach out to. And like I said, if you have a telephone, call 911. Wherever you are in that place, call someone to help you. Please don't sit in silence and don't stay anywhere that you're being abused. Get away from it right away, as fast as you can, because you don't want it to be worse than what it is that you're experiencing.
Right. Okay. So the next question, Dr. Sims, I'd like you to take it, is saying, what can we do to help our Black men to deal with their anger issues? Those who are abusive, that is.
For instance, the roles that I play, I'm a mother. So my son is a man, and I'm mothering him and have mothered him. So I tried my best to make sure that he feels good about himself as a Black man, and that he doesn't think that he needs to be white or he has to look for white people. He needs to educate himself. He needs to get this strength of the skills that are available. He needs to make sure that he can support his children, and he needs to make sure that he takes pride in who he is. So, and my grandson, I keep a good relationship with them, with the grandsons, to make sure they see that they are very, very important. So those roles are important for us to change them and to help them to see that they can change. And it depends on the relationship. And when people look at the relationship you have with these people in the different roles, some of you are mothers, some are grandmothers, some of you are aunties, some are sisters, whatever your role is, you have lots of roles. And through those roles that you can show what it is for them to be, really making a difference in their lives. So I think we have the ability to do it, and we must look at what the roles that we are still playing. And if you're a wife, ask yourself what kind of treatment you're getting and have discussion. We need to talk to each other. We need to speak. We need to listen. We need to care. So I think the roles, because many of us have many roles. Some are aunties, grand-aunts. As I said, a lot of the women that I have met have all these roles, multiple roles. So we have to use those roles carefully.
Right. Okay. Now, the next question is for you again, Dr. Sims. She says, Dr. Sims, I am a mixed woman, and I often feel that among my Black friends, I often have to prove that I am Black too. Why do you think this happens?
I don't think she would have to prove anything. Yes, on the slave plantation, we all came out. Where I came from in St. Elizabeth, you have the mulatto class who came out of slavery and the Black people who were there. And they just didn't like one another. In the school, the child said, I don't want that Black teacher. When I went to do practice teaching, I don't want that Black teacher, that kind of thing. So they learn to respect the color of their skin, the shade, etc. But I mean, that's all part of the slave plantation. We have to make sure that they no longer think the plantation is about them running it and treating the Black people as slaves anymore. And it still continues, especially in the parish from which I came. It's the two castes. And they try to rule one another and try to give the best education. And so therefore we like the politicians who come in and make sure they open the doors so that Black children can get the best education along with all those from the planter class.
Right, right.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Sims. So we'll just be able to take one more question. By the way, the individual that sent a message earlier to say that she's alone with an individual and she doesn't know what to do. There's some numbers, help numbers that have been put in the chat there, for you to call, distress numbers. And you can also reach out to Maama Watali as well if these numbers are not in your area. Now, Debra, you're taking the last question. I know you have two boys. It's asking, as a Black woman, how can we support our men? How do we, raise strong Black men?
For me, having two boys, I made sure that they were well grounded. I never stopped them from what they wanted to do. I was always there as a mother to speak with them and to help them along the way. And I can say that they are well-rounded young men that have families of their own. And yes, they've had their issues, as all teenagers do. But I think if we as parents would really spend time and train our children up, in the ways that they should be and they should go and how to act in society and all of that. And we let them be themselves, but we guide them along the way. I think that they will be raised up. And sometimes, they might grow up with a single parent or they might grow up with two parents, but we have to really cushion them and show them the way, show them that, you could be a strong man without being an abusive man. You can be a strong man and yet still be a teddy bear with your spouse or your children. And it's okay to cry as a man, because a lot of times, the men think that they're not allowed to cry. Why? We all have emotions, right? So if we get them to the point where they understand who they are as boys and then as men, I think our society will be a lot better. So we need to be able to show our children by example, and also being able to speak with them at the same time, just guiding them along the way. And I think we will have a much better society. Just have a good life. Honestly, just have a good life. Show them that.
Thank you so much, Debra. This has been a wonderful conversation. I wish it wouldn't end, but every good thing has an end. We've been talking about the myth of the superwoman, the whole concept of don't wash your dirty linen in public, the effects of slavery on a Black woman, the relationship between Black men and Black women. And I've actually learned a few things from today. One of them is the fact that the whole thing about being a superwoman doesn't mean that you cannot be vulnerable. If you have issues, feel free to share them. It's liberating, and you can get help when you do that. And also the fact that, yes, there was slavery, but we should try to, move forward in spite of what we've been through. And that's why Debra, who is a forgiveness coach, is here. She spoke a lot about forgiveness. And also the whole thing of it doesn't mean that if your husband, if he's not abusive, he doesn't love you, based on the concept of our parents. And no form of abuse is acceptable, and it should be reported. I said there was a question there about child sexual abuse, which we couldn't get to, but as a community, we have to stop the whole concept of not airing our dirty linen in public, and we kind of die in silence. If family members abuse a child and we don't report it, that has to really stop. We have to make sure that we call out the perpetrators of violence against women, against children. That's the right thing to do. Now, I'd like to thank you all for joining us. I mean, I just love today's participants because the chat room has been buzzing. I've been reading some of the amazing comments. I wish I had time to read some of them out. I'd like to thank Maama Watali for putting this event together. Thank you, Dr. Sims, for coming. You're amazing. We love you. We appreciate you. I'd like to thank Debra as well for coming. Now, I'd like to thank the government of Canada through Employment and Social Development Canada for funding this, which was administered by the Canadian Red Cross. And contact them by email at info@mamawatali.org, or you can visit mamawatali.org. Thank you again. Stay safe, and make sure you remain forgiving and loving. And we'll see you again another time. God bless you. Take care. Love you. Bye.